They say love is patient, that it's kind. But no one tells you that sometimes love is a cage you build for yourself, bar by bar, sacrifice by sacrifice, until one day you realize you've disappeared inside it. I used to bend myself backward, for him, for my family, for work, always saying yes, always putting everyone else's needs first. And every time I fell apart, they called me dramatic, ungrateful, too much. He was the worst of them, Daniel. Smirking while I cried, calling me needy when all I wanted was a scrap of affection. He said things like, "You're lucky I put up with this," and I believed him. I believed him when he said no one else would ever love someone like me, that my silence was loyalty, that my exhaustion was weakness. But one night, after another of his cold dismissals, something inside me snapped. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Tired eyes, quiet mouth, clenched jaw. And then it hit me. I wasn't too much. I was not enough for people who only knew how to take. So I stopped breaking myself to fit into a life that made me feel invisible. Hi, I'm Eva, and this is the day I stopped begging to be loved and started learning to love myself. One night I waited for my husband, Mark, to come home. The clock ticked past midnight, and I sat in our dimly lit living room, my eyes darting between the front door and the glowing screen of my phone. My fingers gripped the throw pillow like it could shield me from what I already knew, but wasn't ready to face. He had texted me hours earlier, "Don't wait up catching up with colleagues after the conference." That was the third time in a week. Something felt off. His messages were too clipped. The excuses were too polished, like lines rehearsed in a mirror. I didn't want to be that paranoid wife, the one who snoops and suspects. But I wasn't stupid, either. After 10 years of marriage, you learn to read the silences more than the words. So I did the thing I never thought I'd do. I went through his old phone, the one he forgot to reset when he got a new one. He had shoved it in his drawer, thinking it was dead and useless. But it wasn't. It still lit up when I plugged it in, and it still held pieces of a truth I wasn't supposed to find. That's when I saw the call logs, late-night calls to the same number, repeated, hours long. A woman's name I didn't recognize, Lena. The timestamps matched those nights he claimed to be with colleagues. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, the heat rising in my cheeks until I thought I'd scream. My breath caught in my throat. Betrayal doesn't knock. It crashes through the front door and burns everything in its path. And that night, it burned my marriage to ash. I confronted him the next morning. He was brushing his teeth, humming, like everything was fine, like my world hadn't shifted on its axis just a few hours before. "Who's Lena?" I asked, voice as flat as a razor. He froze. The toothbrush stopped mid-motion. His eyes met mine in the mirror, wide, startled, but only for a second. Then came the lie. "She's just a friend. She's going through a hard time. I've been trying to help her." I could have laughed if I wasn't about to break. At midnight, 3 times a week? He turned around, brushing forgotten. "You're overreacting. It's nothing. Don't go making this into some drama." That word, drama. Like my pain was just a scene, like my heart was a performance. I felt something inside me snap. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I nodded slowly, turned around, and walked out. But I knew then, I wasn't walking away from the argument. I was walking into a new version of myself. A version that wouldn't beg, wouldn't wait, wouldn't be gaslit into silence. For days, I played the part, calm, composed. He thought I had believed him. He thought the lie had landed. But I had already started planning my exit. Because I wasn't just going to leave him. I was going to show him that actions have consequences. That the woman he thought would stay silent, would stay small, was about to rise. He had cracked the foundation of our marriage with 1,000 tiny lies, but I was about to tear the whole house down, brick by brick. And this time, I would be the one holding the match. After discovering those calls and watching Mark lie straight to my face, I realized something chilling. This wasn't some one-time emotional lapse. It wasn't an innocent connection or a friend in need. No, this was a calculated, ongoing deception. The kind that doesn't just happen. The kind you maintain, nurture, and protect by choice. That night, while he snored in bed beside me, I sat in the kitchen with the light off, scrolling through every digital trace he'd left behind. His new phone, locked, his laptop, password protected. But that forgotten phone? That was my Pandora's box. I found voicemails, her voice soft and breathy, calling him babe. I found photos too, blurry but damning, of dinner dates, hotel rooms, even a beach trip. And then the worst, a selfie of them together, her in one of my scarves. He had taken her on a weekend trip and told me he was at a leadership retreat. Wanted to scream, to wake him up and throw the phone at his face. But I didn't. Because the more I looked, the more I realized this wasn't just about cheating. This was about a man who had built an entire second life behind my back. A life where I didn't exist except as an obstacle to be managed. The calls had started months ago. Then the frequent absences began. Late meetings, overnight conferences, weekends away. He'd even started criticizing me, my appearance, my routines, my negativity. I'd blamed myself for our growing distance. I thought maybe I wasn't enough anymore. That maybe I needed to try harder, be better. But the truth? It had nothing to do with me. He had already made his choice. He was just waiting for the right time to replace me. To walk away when it was convenient, leaving me to pick up the wreckage while he strolled into his shiny new chapter. And that's when the deeper betrayal sank in. It wasn't just emotional, it was financial. I was the one who put my career on pause when we had kids. I was the one who managed the home, the doctor's appointments, the PTA meetings, the late-night fevers. I gave up promotions, travel, ambition, so he could climb the ladder. I believed in us. Meanwhile, he was rerouting his paychecks into a separate account. I found emails confirming a lease in his name and hers, an apartment 2 towns over, newly furnished and waiting. He was preparing for a life with her, and from the looks of it, he planned to leave me with little more than a thank you and a divorce paper. The man I trusted with my life was setting me up to be disposable. That was the moment the grief turned to fury. He didn't just cheat, he tried to erase me, everything I'd done, everything we'd built. I was supposed to roll over, cry quietly, and let him walk away clean. But not this time. He thought I didn't know. He thought I wouldn't fight. He thought his lies would stay hidden long enough for him to escape the consequences. But I had seen enough. And now, I was done playing the clueless wife. I started documenting everything, screenshots, dates, phone records, even old credit card statements. I reached out to a friend who worked in legal, asking subtle questions. I researched divorce, laws in our state. I wasn't just going to leave him. I was going to make sure he remembered exactly who he tried to destroy. Because this wasn't just betrayal. It was war, and I wasn't about to lose. For days, I functioned on autopilot. I got the kids ready for school, showed up to work, smiled through small talk with neighbors, but inside, I was unraveling. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was terrified. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was what it meant, what it could cost me. This man wasn't just walking out on a marriage. He was walking out on our life and taking everything I'd sacrificed with him. And if I didn't act fast, he could leave me with nothing but memories and unpaid bills. You see, I had given everything to this partnership. When we had our first child, we made a choice. Mark would focus on work, and I would stay home, at least for a while. Just until the baby's in school, we said. But 1 year turned to 5. Then came another child. Then his promotions, always requiring longer hours, more travel, and I kept adjusting, supporting, stretching. I left. Behind the marketing career I had worked so hard to build, I took part-time jobs, freelance gigs, anything to stay afloat while being the default parent. Doctor visits, school meetings, every scraped knee, every missed nap, I was the one there. Meanwhile, Mark built his empire on the scaffolding of my labor. And now he was ready to cut me loose like a phase he outgrew. But not before securing his future with another woman. One who, conveniently, hadn't been there during the messy years. Who hadn't seen him depressed, angry, lost. One who got the polished version of him I helped create. If he left me now, Strategically, quietly, without resistance, he'd get to keep most of the assets. The new apartment, his retirement funds, even partial custody of the kids if he played it right. Because on paper, he was the provider, I was the dependent, and that terrified me. I started to panic. What if the house wasn't in both our names? What if he'd shifted money into secret accounts? What if I couldn't prove the infidelity, the emotional abuse, the financial manipulation? I wasn't just facing heartbreak, I was facing the potential collapse of my entire future. I'd seen it happen to women before. Friends, neighbors, women in Facebook support groups. One day you're baking birthday cakes and organizing carpool. The next, you're couch surfing with your kids because your ex forgot to pay the mortgage. I wasn't going to be another cautionary tale. But beyond the finances, beyond the logistics, there was something deeper gnawing at me. The erasure. He was going to rewrite our story, to paint me as the bitter, unstable wife, the one who couldn't keep him happy. While he paraded around with Lena, pretending to be the brave man who had to make a hard choice for his own joy. And I couldn't let that stand. I couldn't let my children grow up thinking this was okay. That it was normal for men to cheat and lie and manipulate, and for women to just endure. I wanted them to see strength, to see justice, to understand that love should never mean silence, and that betrayal has consequences. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about reclaiming the narrative. About teaching my kids, especially my daughter, that you don't have to stay small to keep the peace. He tried to control the story, tried to hide his sins behind my silence. But I was done being quiet. I had too much to lose. My future, my dignity, my children's stability. He wanted to burn the life we built and build a new one on the ashes, but I wasn't going to let him light the match, because this time I wasn't the victim. I was the reckoning. I didn't rush. That was the first rule I made for myself. I couldn't afford to make a move out of emotion. Not when I was dealing with a man who had already proven how carefully he planned. If he had time to build this secret life, I was going to take time. To destroy it, meticulously. First, I contacted a lawyer. Not one of those cheap ones Mark would expect me to go for out of desperation. No, I found a razor-sharp divorce attorney, the kind that made executives sweat and Wall Street wolves cough up settlements. She was a woman who'd seen it all, and when I laid out the evidence I had, her eyes gleamed. Don't confront him again, she told me. Play nice. Let him think he's winning, while we prepare to bury him legally. That advice became my new mantra. So I played the role of the forgiving wife. I acted hurt but open, quiet but hopeful. I even suggested we work on things. Asked him if he'd like to plan a weekend away, just us. He smiled, relieved, thinking I was folding under the weight of my own insecurity. Meanwhile, I opened a new bank account in my name only. I began transferring small, unnoticeable amounts from our joint account into it, citing groceries and household supplies. Every receipt filed away. I started documenting every expense Mark charged on his personal card, especially the ones that traced back to Lena. Restaurants, jewelry, hotel stays, and yes, that second lease with both their names. It turns out, Lena wasn't so careful either. I found her Instagram, private, but not to her work profile. She'd posted just enough, that beach weekend, a wine glass beside a man's hand, Mark's. Ring was conveniently off, but I recognized the scar near his knuckle. She'd tagged the hotel. The timing matched his team-building retreat. Piece by piece, I was building a legal time bomb. Then came the smart home cameras. Our house had two, one at the front door and one in the living room. Mark had forgotten that they stored old footage for months. I sifted through them during his trips. One clip in particular nearly made me sick, him on a phone call with her, pacing the living room, telling her he couldn't wait to finally get rid of this mess, while I was in the kitchen making dinner, just one room away. I sent that clip straight to my attorney. At her advice, I also began collecting proof of his manipulation. I wrote down every time he criticized me, every gaslighting phrase. You're imagining things. Don't make this about you. You're being dramatic. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the emotional damage, the control, the financial deception. And then I started preparing for the storm. I made copies of all legal documents, marriage certificate, bank statements, mortgage papers, the kids' birth certificates. I saved all the messages and emails on a secure drive, along with screenshots of his call history and Lena's posts. I even contacted a forensic accountant recommended by my lawyer to start tracking down any hidden funds. He thought he was 2 steps ahead, but I was playing chess while he was busy juggling lies. Every smile I gave him in those days, every have a good day at work, was another step in my plan. I wasn't just preparing to leave him. I was preparing to expose him. Legally, financially, socially. I wanted him to feel the walls close in, not with rage or drama, but with cold, undeniable evidence. The kind that leaves no room for denial, no place to hide. He wanted a clean break, but I was going to give him a brutal reckoning, and I was just getting started. The morning I officially began executing my plan, Mark kissed me goodbye on his way to work, like everything was normal. His lips brushed my cheek, and he mumbled something about a late meeting. I smiled, nodded, and handed him his coffee. He didn't know that by the end of the week, I'd have turned his lies into legal ammunition. The first step was securing financial leverage. With my attorney's help, I ran a full forensic review of our joint accounts. We uncovered several large, undocumented withdrawals Mark had made over the past 8 months, thousands of dollars, disguised as business expenses. But the receipts didn't match up. And when my attorney subpoenaed the statements from his business credit card, we struck gold. Mark had been funneling money from our joint account to fund Lena's lifestyle. Spa days, designer handbags, furniture for their apartment. He wasn't just planning to leave me, he was robbing me blind before he did. I had already opened my own account, but now I worked to build a financial cushion. I picked up freelance contracts and put every cent away, quietly, carefully. I also changed my will, my power of attorney, and removed Mark as the emergency contact on all personal documents. Next was the digital side of things. I backed up all the damning evidence. Call logs, voicemails, Lena's Instagram posts, the home security footage. I uploaded them to a private cloud folder with restricted access and labeled it in the most boring way possible. Tax documents 2019. No one would touch it. Then I began speaking to people, subtly. I scheduled lunch with our mutual friends. I started conversations that opened doors without slamming Mark outright. He's been so distant lately. I'm not sure what's going on. People started to talk back. And it turns out, Mark had been slipping. A few friends had caught glimpses of Lena. One had seen him at a hotel bar in another town. Another had received a cryptic message from him months ago, asking for advice on how to end a marriage cleanly. I didn't rage. I took notes. Then came the parenting strategy. Mark assumed he would be able to maintain partial custody, split weekends, the occasional holiday. He hadn't anticipated the receipts I was gathering of his neglect. He missed our son's parent-teacher meeting 3 times in a row. He didn't show up for our daughter's dance recital. He left the kids alone with me every time he had a trip, whether real or fabricated. I kept a journal. Dates, events, missed commitments, times he came home too drunk to tuck them in. The courts wouldn't just see infidelity, they'd see a man who was gradually becoming an absent parent. I also made an appointment with a therapist for myself, and then one for the kids. I didn't tell Mark, but their sessions started laying the groundwork for emotional support and documentation, records that would show how the environment at home was shifting, that their father was distant, unreliable, cold. And all along, I pretended everything was fine. It was the hardest part, keeping my face straight while sleeping next to the man who had betrayed me in the deepest ways imaginable. But I knew if I moved too soon, he'd retaliate. He'd hide more money, erase records, maybe even manipulate the kids. No, I had to wait for the exact right moment to strike. That moment was coming. I had an arsenal now: financial evidence, social proof, legal representation, therapist support, and a digital vault packed with everything I needed to take this from betrayal to justice. I wasn't trying to ruin Mark's life. I was simply giving him what he earned. Every cruel word, every lie, every selfish act. He gambled everything on the belief that I wouldn't fight back. But now the clock was ticking, and he didn't even know it. It was a Thursday morning when it all came to a head. The sky was unusually calm, blue almost, mocking in its serenity. I had laid everything out. There was no turning back now. Mark walked through the door just after 9 a.m., confused. "Why are you dressed like you're going to court?" he joked, setting down his keys. I was. A navy. Blazer, dark jeans, a sharp white blouse, battle armor. I took a deep breath. "Sit down, Mark. We need to talk." He hesitated, then gave a forced laugh. "Is this another one of your emotional mornings? I have a meeting in... I know about Lena." Silence. The name hung in the air like a grenade. I watched the color drain from his face. He blinked, swallowed, then, as expected, tried to recover. I don't know what you think you know, but..." "I know everything," I said, my voice like steel. "The second apartment, the trips, the phone calls you thought were private, the spa charges, the hotel rooms, I know." His lips parted, but no sound came out. I slid a thick manila envelope across the table. Inside, the call logs, receipts, screenshots, camera footage, bank statements, proof beyond denial. And next to it, a copy of the divorce papers my attorney had filed that morning. "This is a full account of your actions, every lie, every dollar, every act of betrayal. It's all documented. The lawyer has already filed. You'll be served. Officially by tomorrow." He flipped through the contents, jaw tightening. "You went behind my back." "Don't," I snapped. "Don't you dare talk about betrayal." His attempt at control was slipping. That cool, confident facade cracked into something real. Panic. "I have rights," he said. "This could destroy my job." "And you should have thought of that before funding your mistress with our kids' college fund." His eyes narrowed. "So what? You want revenge?" "No," I said. "I want justice. You don't get to walk away clean. You don't get to rewrite history." That afternoon, I emailed the tax documents folder to both our lawyers. I submitted my journal, the therapy records, the footage. I handed over proof that he had emotionally neglected his children, financially manipulated our assets, and orchestrated his exit like a corporate deal. The courts responded quickly. His lawyer tried to counter. He cried in mediation. He begged for joint custody, claiming he'd made mistakes, that it was a phase, that he'd come back. But the evidence didn't lie. In the end, I kept the house. I secured majority custody. The court ordered Mark to pay spousal and child support, citing both infidelity and financial misconduct. The new apartment? Liquidated. Lena? Gone before the ink dried. He had to move back into a rental, alone, reputation frayed, finances drained. But I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because women like me are always expected to forgive, to endure, to rebuild quietly. Not this time. I took back my power. I protected my children. And I made sure Mark learned that choices come with consequences. After the dust settled, people started reaching out. Neighbors, colleagues, even friends of Mark's. "I had no idea," some said. "You handled this with so much strength." Others wrote. But the truth? I didn't feel strong through most of it. I felt scared, angry, tired. Strength isn't a feeling. It's a choice you make, even when you're shaking. And when you're betrayed by someone you loved, it's okay to fall apart. Just don't forget to rise. In the end, Mark lost more than a marriage. He lost the right to call himself honest, trustworthy, a good father, a good man. And me? I gained everything I'd forgotten I deserved. Peace, freedom, and the knowledge that I didn't just survive betrayal. I turned it into justice.